Math Blast 14, word problems. Micah put 18 pencils in 2 equal groups. How many pencils are in each group? Solve and model using equal groups or an array. I'm going to use an array. An array is an arrangement of items using rows and columns. So here, my rows will be my groups. So if I put 2 rows here, this will be a row and this will be a row. And I'm going to organize my pencils into these 2 groups. So I have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18. Now you'll notice that there are 9 pencils in each of the groups. So each group has 9 pencils. And I know that 2 groups of 9, or 2 times 9, equals 18. Determining the unknown. Fill in the missing factor. 7 times what is 35? Well, I'm going to skip count by 7s and see how many times I have to skip count by 7s to get to 35. 7, 14, 21, 28, 35. Notice it was 5 times. 7 times 5 equals 35. Here, 36 is equal to 9 times something. Well, again, I can skip count by 9s and figure out how many times I have to skip count by 9s to get to 36. 9, 18, 27, 36. Notice it was 4 times. 9 times 4 equals 36. 48 divided by 8 equals something. Well, I'm trying to figure out how many groups out of 8 I could get out of 48. Let's skip count by 8s until we get to 48. 8, 16, 24, 32, 40, 48. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 times. 8 divided into 48, or 48 divided by 8 is 6. 2 is equal to something divided by 6. I'm missing the whole here. If I have some whole number and break it up into 6 in each group, and I get 2 groups, well, I know that's the same as 6 times 2, or 2 times 6, which is 12. 12 divided by 6 equals 2. Patterns. What rule is the function machine using? Well, the function machine here, the input to the output, just says, hey, whatever happens to this input number when I put it in the machine, something's happening to get these output numbers here. What happens to 12 to get to 18? Well, I know that 18 is larger than 12, so maybe I'm adding something to 12. If I add 6, I get 18. But I have to make sure this works all the way through the table to consider it the rule. 24 plus 6 is 30, and 36 plus 6 is 42. Since that works all the way through the table, I can call the rule input times 6, or I'm sorry, plus 6. We were adding 6 each time. So input plus 6 equals the output. Rounding. Round 237 to the nearest 10. Well, I'm going to use a vertical number line here. When I'm rounding, since I'm rounding to the nearest 10 here, I will ask myself, how many total 10s make up my number if 10 is serving as my largest unit right now? So I'll go all the way over to the 10s place. 23 10s make up my number. In standard form, that's written as 230. If I add one more 10 to my number, I would have 24 10s. We know in standard form that's 240. Now I want to determine the midpoint. The number that lies right between 230 and 240 is 235. It's always the bottom number here with 5 in my next unit. So I want to place 237 on my number line at this time. I know that 237 is going to lie above the 235. Therefore, 237 rounds up to 240. If my number is at or above the midpoint, it would round up. If my number falls below the midpoint, it rounds down. In this case, my number rounds up. 237, once again, rounds to 240. This time I want to round 237 to the nearest 100. So since 100 is what I'm rounding to, I'm going to go to my hundreds place. Using hundreds as the greatest unit, how many hundreds make up my number? 2. 2 hundreds, I know, can be written as 200 in standard form. Adding on 100 would give me 3 hundreds. In standard form, that is equal to 300. Now we need the midpoint here. The midpoint, the number that falls right between 200 and 300, is 250. Again, it's what's on the bottom here, but a 5 in my next unit that has a 0 here. So 250 is the midpoint. Now let's place my number 237 on the vertical number line. I notice that 237 is going to fall about here. And since my number falls below the midpoint, it is going to round down. 237 rounds to 200. Appropriate metric units. Circle the most appropriate unit. Volume of a carton of orange juice. Would that be 2 liters or 200 milliliters? Well, I know that you can buy cartons of orange juice in liters, and 2 liters seems very reasonable for orange juice there. 200 milliliters seems like it would be much less, smaller, a very small amount of orange juice, so probably not what we want to package that in. Pair of scissors. A pair of scissors would be 1 kilogram or 100 grams. Now I know a gram, a reference for a gram might be a paper clip, and if I took 100 paper clips in my hand, I know that could be about the weight of a pair of scissors. So I'm going to say that the pair of scissors is most reasonable at 100 grams.